Okay, I see it's 2 o'clock. So let's start the meeting with a call to order and roll call, please. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mayor Lawson,
Here?
Council members Abbott,
Here.
Vanderwell,
Here.
Anderson,
Here.
Bybee,
Here.
Dare,
Here.
City Manager Kreutz,
Here.
City Attorney Adams, not seeing City Attorney Adams.
We're gonna need an attorney.
There he is.
There it is. Okay,
Waiting that up. Yep, so we're all in there.
so we,
So to finish up roll call, can we get a roll call from Mr. Adams, please?
Chad Adams, your city attorney, is right here.
Great,
Thank
thank you.
thank you,
We have
sir.
a quorum.
Okay, let's go with, I don't know, the invocation speaker. Christopher, you mind doing an invocation?
Happy to. If you would join me real quick. Lord, we come to you and we just thank you for the ability that we have to come together and make decisions for our city. I do pray with all that's going on. There's so many people walking through some difficult times with COVID and different things. Give us wisdom. Thank you for the people who are stepping up. And Lord, I do pray for this year as it ends, that it even begins in an amazing way, that we can make some huge strides towards health and well-being for our city. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. And then can you guys see the flag behind me, or do we have a way to adjust so we can see the flag? If not, oh, there we go. So Councilwoman Bybee, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
I'd be happy to. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Okay, public comment. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, and if I could read the opening announcement, please.
Please.
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. Due to the social distancing requirements enacted in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, the Sparks City Council meetings will be hosted in this virtual setting until further notice. The safety of Sparks residents, employees, and elected officials are important to us, and we appreciate your patience as we journey through this virtual meeting together. The City of Sparks uses Zoom, a third-party app for its virtual meetings, and does not control its technical specifications or requirements. Your ability to participate in public comment during this meeting may be impacted by factors like the type of device you use, the strength of your internet or cellular signal, and the company that provides your internet or cellular signal. The City of Sparks is not responsible if you are not able to participate in a meeting through Zoom due to these or any other factors. For those watching and listening from home, general public comment will be announced for items 4 and 12.1. If you wish to speak during general public comment, you will need to call in using the phone number provided or join the meeting via Zoom. Public comment will not be permitted on social media outlets. Public comment will also be opened for public hearing item 10.1. All participants will be muted upon entry. If you would like to speak during public comment, press *9 from your telephone or use the raise your hand function on Zoom when prompted. You will be called on to speak one at a time by either your name or telephone number you're calling from. Please listen carefully as the clerk reads off your name or your phone number. No video callers will be admitted to the meeting. When you are called upon to speak, first state your name for the record and then begin speaking. The timer will begin when you say your name and you will have 3 minutes. Please remember, any comments or questions cannot be addressed or answered by the council if the topics have not been agendized. Any persons who disrupts the meeting to the extent that it is disorderly conduct will be removed from the meeting. Thank you again for joining us. The meeting will now begin.
Okay, we have public comment.
I don't have any hands up, sir. We'll give them just 1 minute. No, sir, I don't have any public comment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to the agenda, approval of the agenda. I'm looking for a motion.
Mr. Mayor?
Ms. Bybee?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and move that we accept the agenda with the following changes: to pull item 7.8 and to move item 9.2 and item 9.3 to immediately after item 6.1.
Okay, looking for a second.
I'll
Mr.
second
Dare?
that.
Mr. Dare, thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Okay, moving on. Consideration of possible approval of the minutes for the Sparks City Council meeting for October 26, 2020. Looking for a motion.
Move to approve?
First by Councilman Anders, second by Councilman Abbott. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, now the fun part. 9.2. Let me get over here. 9.2, administer the oath of office to the newly appointed Assistant City Manager, Allison McCormick. Come on up, Allison. You don't want to be chief of police.
No, thank you.
Okay, raise your right hand. I state your name, do solemnly swear that I will support,
I, Allison McCormick, do solemnly swear that I will support,
protect, and defend the Constitution
protect, and defend the Constitution
of the government of the United States,
and government of the United States,
the government of the state of Nevada,
the government of the state of Nevada,
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
whether foreign or domestic,
whether foreign or domestic,
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance
and loyalty to the same,
and loyalty to the same,
any ordinance, resolution, or law of any state notwithstanding,
any ordinance, resolution, or law of any state notwithstanding,
and that I will well and faithfully perform all these duties of Assistant City Manager
and that I will well and faithfully perform all these duties of Assistant City Manager
for the City of Sparks,
for the City of Sparks,
County of Washoe,
County of Washoe,
State of Nevada,
State of Nevada,
on which I'm about to enter, so help me God.
on which I am about to enter, so help me God.
There you go.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you
Now
very
you have
much.
to sign and give it back.
Okay.
Okay, Chief, come on down. So you guys remove the microphones?
Can you guys keep closer to the front of the dais so we can pick you up on these mics right now?
You can.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, raise your right hand. I, Chris Crawford,
I, Chris Crawford,
do solemnly swear that I will support, protect, and defend
do solemnly swear that I will support, protect, and defend
the Constitution and government of the United States
the Constitution and government of the United States
and the Constitution and government of the state of Nevada
and the Constitution and government of the state of Nevada
against all enemies, whether foreign or domestic,
against all enemies, whether foreign or domestic,
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance
and loyalty to the same.
and loyalty to the same,
Any ordinance, resolution, or law of any state notwithstanding. Let me help you out. Any ordinance,
any ordinance,
resolution,
resolution,
or law of any state notwithstanding.
or law of any state notwithstanding,
That I will well and faithfully perform all the duties of Chief of Police
that I will well and faithfully perform all the duties of Chief of Police
for the City of Sparks,
for the City of Sparks,
County of Washoe,
County of Washoe,
State of Nevada,
State of Nevada,
on which I am about to enter, so help me God.
on which I am about to enter, so help me God.
We got through it.
You did it.
Thank you, sir. Congratulations. Yes, sir. Bring them up. Welcome to our new police chief and our new assistant city manager, both great additions to our team. We're looking forward to working together. It's going to be great. Okay. Now, if you don't want to sit through the rest of the meeting, this would be the time for you to make for the exit. We'll just take a minute real quick. Okay. So let's move on to item number 7. Announcements, presentation, recognition items, and items of special interest. 7.1 Proclamation Alpha One Awareness Day. Mr. Anderson?
Thank you. Whereas Alpha 1 antitrypsin deficiency, Alpha 1, is the one most common serious hereditary disorder in the world and can result in life-threatening lung disease in adults and liver disease in both children and adults. And whereas Alpha 1 has been identified in nearly all populations and ethnic groups, and whereas Alpha 1 is widely underdiagnosed and misdiagnosed, and fewer than 10% of those predicted to have Alpha 1 have been diagnosed. And whereas it is important to increase awareness and detection of the serious hereditary and misdiagnosed disorder. And whereas during the month of November, a nationwide awareness campaign will take place throughout the country to educate the public as well as medical community on Alpha 1 detection and the treatment for those affected by this condition. Now therefore, Ed Lawson, Mayor of City of Sparks, Nevada, do hereby proclaim November 2020 as Alpha 1 Awareness Month.
The golf clap. Good job. Okay. Item 7.2, Proclamation Extra Mile Day. Christopher.
Yes, it says, whereas the city of Sparks acknowledges that a special vibrancy exists in the community when its citizens collectively go the extra mile in personal effort, volunteerism, and service. And whereas the city of Sparks encourages its citizens to maximize their personal contribution by giving of themselves wholeheartedly and with total commitment, conviction to their family, friends, and community. And whereas the city of Sparks chooses to shine a light on and celebrate individuals and organizations within its community who go the extra mile in order to make a difference and lift up fellow members of their community. And whereas the city of Sparks acknowledges the mission of Extra Mile America to create 500 extra mile cities in America and is proud to support Extra Mile Day on November 9th, 2020. And now therefore, Ed Lawson, Mayor of Sparks, Nevada, does hereby proclaim November 9th, 2020 as Extra Mile Day and urges each individual in the community to take time on this day to not only go the extra mile in his or her own life, but to also acknowledge all those who are inspirational in their efforts and commitment to make their organizations, families, community, and country or world a better place. Woo-woo! Exciting.
All right. Thank you. All right, 7.3 Proclamation National Apprentice Week in Nevada. Ms. Vanderwell.
Yes, thank you. Whereas high-quality registered apprenticeship programs have provided opportunities and secure jobs to Nevadans for decades, and whereas the number of active apprentices has consistently increased, including among women, minorities, and veterans, demonstrating that apprenticeship is a viable career path across all segments of our society. And whereas registered apprenticeship training creates industry-driven and flexible training solutions to meet national and local needs and gives individuals of all ages the chance to learn from construction industry professionals. And whereas an ever-growing number of job creators and career seekers are discovering the benefits of apprenticeships unique learn while you earn model, and whereas more than 6,000 active registered apprentices in Nevada are currently training in high-skilled construction careers that will provide opportunity for achievement as well as contribute to the overall prosperity of our state. And whereas the Northern Nevada Building and Construction Trades Union and associated contractors invite community members to visit their joint apprenticeship training centers to see the great opportunities and programs available right here in Northern Nevada. Now, therefore, I, Ed Lawson, Mayor of the City of Sparks, Nevada, do hereby proclaim the week of November 8th through the 14th, 2020 as National Apprenticeship Week in Nevada.
Congratulations. And do we have, Randy is here? Randy?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to come here. Thank you, Ms. Vanderwell, for reading that, and thank you to all council members for giving me the opportunity to accept this on behalf of the Northern Nevada Apprenticeship Coordinators Association and all their signatory contractors. These programs are joint programs run by both labor representation and management representation of the signatory contractors and their employer associations, with the intent of supplying this region with a skilled labor force ready to take on any and all challenges set before it. We appreciate the acknowledgement by our elected officials and want to assure everyone that the invitations to these training centers is real, and I hope that more council members take us up on our offer, as Mr. Abbott has in the past, and I appreciate that. We no longer want to be the best kept secret. We're training for the future of Nevada, and we're also training to be able to bring in all these high-tech jobs and everything else that keeps coming our way. And we're excited to be a part of it, and we greatly appreciate your acknowledgement.
Thank you. And what you do today is probably more important than it has been in any other time in the recent history. So keep up the good work, guys.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having us again at your meeting.
All right, thank you. We're on to presentation 7.4, update on the cumulative fiscal impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. And I thought I saw Mr. Kronk there a minute ago. There he is.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I'm going to share my screen here. Bear with me just a second here. Can you all see that, my screen? You should see a financial impact update screen.
Yes.
Very good. So again, thanks for letting me do this. For the record, my name is Jeff Kronk, your Chief Financial Officer. And I just wanted to continue this monthly tradition we've got going on during COVID of me just giving you an update of where we stand on some of our expenditures and losses to date. So I'm going to briefly cover this. Please ask any questions, interrupt me if you need to, but I don't intend to spend a lot of your time here today. I know there's other folks, much more interesting folks who want to talk to you today and give you some updates. So just kind of briefly, our expenses incurred to date is about a little over $12.7 million. And that's everything that we've expended and reported to the state through October. So, and the reason that's important is because we're reporting all these costs to the state with the idea that these are going to be covered by the CARES Act dollars. So we have full confidence that everything's going to be covered, at least so far to date. So that's a little over $12.7 million. Our revenue that we've lost, you'll notice this has come down significantly, and will be our projections as well, but we've lost little more than $2 million to date. And now when I say to date, some of our revenues are through October. You know, some of our revenues like business licenses and things that we collect on a monthly basis. But a couple of our revenue streams, especially some of the larger ones like CTAX, like you well know, have a lag, a lag in collection. So there's about a 2-month lag there. So I'm giving you what we have, what we know to date, even though sometimes it's not necessarily real time. So our total financial impact is just a little bit under $14.8 million between the expenses and the revenues lost. So I want to talk about each of those here a little bit more detail just here in the next couple slides. Going back to our expenses, I've been capturing this. I'm hoping this is looking familiar to you. I'm kind of a advocate of believing that at least information that's presented the same way has some value. The numbers change obviously, but I've been reporting this in two different buckets, if you will, our expenses through October, citywide expenses and then regional expenses. So citywide expenses are running about $10.2 million through October, and those are in the four main categories that I've captured there on your screen: medical testing and treatment, PPE and sanitation, payroll expenses being the largest one, which also includes our costs that we've incurred for medical leave and COVID-related medical leave. And then, of course, some teleworking, social distancing, and compliance. And then our other bucket is the regional expenses, which has been, it's going to continue to be in flux a little bit, a little fluid as we're nailing some of this down. But to date, and again through October, we've incurred just about $2.5 million. And again, that's in four different areas that I'm kind of capturing in summary. So our regional incident management costs are just under $300,000. That has stayed consistent for the last couple updates that I've been giving you. But those costs are going to increase pretty significantly. What we're really waiting on is to see how much FEMA is going to cover through Washoe County, and then what they don't cover, they will bill us for that. So they're still waiting. In fact, I just had a meeting with them this morning, and they're still waiting on FEMA for some final indications. So the hope is that FEMA will come through before December 30th, which is when the CARES Act money goes away, supposedly, unless the feds intervene and change that date before what it is now. December 30th is our date. Should FEMA not come in and reimburse those costs timely, then we might have to consider paying those costs with the CARES Act dollar. So that's always been out there, and I just want to let you know that we're still waiting on FEMA a little bit for clarification. So realizing that the clock is ticking, a lot of times we're just going to have to kind of wait and see on that one a little bit. The other ones, food assistance, rental assistance, and rental eviction mediation. These are costs, or these are the allocations that we've given to these organizations or mitigation actions that we're doing for the COVID activity. It's not necessarily all the dollars have been spent, but our allocation to them have been spent in this amount that you see here. And hopefully you'll get clarification on that. I know we've got a couple of people who are going to be talking to you and giving updates on a lot of these issues. So for now, these are again items that we reported to the state. So like, for example, the rental assistance through Reno Housing, we've given them the full $2 million. But I do not believe they spent all the $2 million, and they'll give you the update on that. But that's just our portion of what we've expended out the door, so to speak. So at the end of the day, that's how the $12.7 million kind of breaks out. If you recall, our total CARES Act allocation is just a little under $19.2 million. So we're kind of well on our way. One thing I did want to bring to your attention right now from a split, the citywide expenses, as you see them in front of you right now, are kind of running 80% for citywide expenses, 20% thereabouts for the regional expenses. Those percentages will change rather dramatically in this next 2 months as the regional costs come to fruition and we start settling up accounts, so to speak, especially with the regional activity going on with the homeless activity and then the incident management costs. So I fully expect, as you recall, your original direction to us was to kind of rough numbers, maintain like a 30 to 70 split. That might certainly go up. In fact, I fully expect that it will go up, but we'll know more really in this next month. So, but that's where we stand right now. Through October, we're sitting at about 80%, 20%. But again, those will change pretty dramatically. So if I can move on back to our revenue, and again, I'm hoping this slide looks familiar to you. I've been sharing this again for a couple of months now, just a little bit of breakdown. What you'll notice here is that our numbers are starting to come in a little bit. Now that we've got some data, we're starting to get a little more confident on our projections. And you'll notice on the right-hand column, those losses or projected losses are significantly lower than where they were 4 or 5 months ago when we were just starving for data at the point. As it stands right now, as you recall, I just shared with you before, our total revenue losses to date is just over $2 million broken out amongst these 6 different categories, the biggest one being CTAX, and I want to spend a little time on that here in a second. But what you'll notice, if I can draw your attention to it, especially on the 3rd line down and then the last line, or second to last line down, where we're talking about business license fees and marijuana license fees, I'm pretty confident that those have stopped. So any losses that we've incurred to date, I have not seen any acceleration in that. So I'm pretty confident that, I mean, again, this is all to say, you know, unless we start shutting things down again, right? But as we're seeing right now, you know, that those have really leveled off to the point that I think we've incurred what we're going to incur. CTAX, obviously we're gonna, I'm still expecting things to soften a little bit, but you'll notice that we're, you know, we're a little bit more than halfway there as far as what we're projecting as far as our total losses. I do think things are still going to soften a little bit as we head into the fall months. But these numbers overall, I think the big takeaway from these numbers is that they're certainly a lot less than what we had anticipated when we started this thing now 8 months ago. So, you know, a lot has improved. I wanted to share this with you again. Again, I'm kind of keeping these slides consistent. I only have one new one to share with you today. This is just how CTAX has been flowing since everything shut down starting in March. And again, just as a reminder, that dotted blue line, if you will, is what we had been projecting. That was our original projection before COVID ever happened. And then the red is kind of the impact that we've seen, the solid red being, that's actually what we've seen. And then the dotted red going forward after that is what we think we're going to see, you know, after COVID has been factored in. So, you know, obviously you'll notice here's the big issue. It was all in March, April, and May. We had this big dip, you know, and frankly, that dip down in our revenues in CTAXes wasn't quite as dramatic as we had thought, or as feared, I guess is probably a good way to say it. So as we're looking now and seeing this V-shaped recovery, and again, this will come up on my next slide too, you'll notice that when we're looking at a 16-month total from March of 2020, as we look forward into June 2021, which is the end of our fiscal year, we're kind of now only expecting to get about a 5.3% loss on CTAX. That's very manageable. So again, my big caveat on that is that you know, we shouldn't shut things down again. If things shut down again, we got to start over, you know. But this is what it looks like right now, based on kind of how things are pacing itself. So the last one I wanted to show you, this is a little bit new, just because we've been finally getting some decent data points on unemployment, and we definitely see some trends. And I think you'll see sometimes this gets pretty simple, right? People stop working and our CTAX goes away. I mean, if I can just kind of toggle back and forth, remember this spike down in our revenue? Well, that exactly correlates to the spike up in unemployment. So what you're seeing on this slide is I kind of gave ourselves the Reno-Sparks MSA stands for the Metropolitan Statistical Area, and that's our greater region, if you will. That's in the dotted yellow line to kind of make it stand out for you a little bit. But I wanted to compare that to what's going on in Las Vegas, and then Nevada state as a whole, and then our nation as a whole. And you'll see some pretty scary numbers, unemployment that comes down in here in these data points. When it started in March, really spiked in May, and then in April, and then again in May, and then really came down pretty good in June. And since then, we've been trying to find our feet again, and we're starting to level off, but on a pretty good trajectory downward. So this is all extremely good news. I mean, right now we're looking at a 6.7% unemployment rate in the region. I expect that to go down. Nationally, we're at 7.7%. That was literally just announced on Friday that came down to 6.9%. So the trajectory is good. It's coming down. And as people continue to get their jobs back or find new work or whatever, that'll certainly help us in the region as far as our CTAX is going to continue to grow stronger. So just to put it in perspective, I'll end on this. These are scary numbers. I mean, when we were back in March, April, and May, we had never seen, even in the Great Recession, unemployment numbers like this. So when it spiked that fast, you know, from 5 point something up to 20%, that's enough to just make you, rock back on your heels and try to figure out what the heck's going on. To put it in context, though, from a historical perspective, we've never seen that high rate. We peaked out our highest in the Great Recession at about 13.3, I believe, 13.6%, just over 13. That was in January. Oh, when did that peak out? It was either 09 or 11. But anyway, but to give you historical context, the difference between this recession and the last recession is that the last recession, we saw double-digit unemployment for about 52 months in a row. So it was much longer in scope and depth even, as far as the overall impact. What we're seeing here is really a flash in the pan, if you will. This is a spike. This is what's commonly known as a V-shaped recovery. So again, trajectory is good. We're headed in the right direction. As long as we keep things opening up, in a good way, in a conscious way, and doing things that we need to do. But as long as we're not shutting the business down, I see, a really good trend as we go forward. So we still got some work to do. The CTAX will still, like I said, soften. It should soften as the stimulus wears off. That ended, the $2.2 trillion, wears off. And it might get bolstered again if we get some more stimulus. No idea how that's going to play out. If you guys can figure out Washington, please let me know. But for now, we kind of wait on that. But as it stands, it's on a good trajectory. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. I'll stop sharing my screen unless there are questions.
Questions from the council?
Mr. Mayor, I had a comment.
Okay, go ahead. I can't see you yet.
I know, I can't see you either.
Should I stop sharing my screen, or did you
We're
have
looking at unemployment. We're still looking at unemployment.
Okay.
There we go.
Is that okay? Okay.
Yeah, let me see, am I unmuted? Okay. Jeff, thank you for, it's encouraging in a rough time. It's not as bad as we thought it would be. And that's an encouraging thing. I think an important thing to note too for our region, it really exemplifies how important Northern Nevada and our region has been in really expanding our economic base to be so much stronger and not to have vulnerability when there are variety of things. I mean, we've seen, the pandemic no one foresaw. We saw 9/11. When we see things that have affected our economy, Vegas, on the other hand, unfortunately with gaming and tourism and conventions, is so heavily dependent on that, and as is the state for that revenue, and doesn't have as much to back up that loss that we're seeing too, but nothing like the southern end of the state. So I think it reiterates the importance of the economic development efforts we've been making, both here in Sparks in the region, Northern Nevada, between EDON and GoEd. I think that work really is shown that difference of our numbers are so much better. And I think that's an important thing to really continue to do so that we can continue to have a stronger economic base, that no matter what we face next, there's not one sector that crashes our economy like it did during the recession, whether that's construction or gaming or tourism, because we don't know what could happen. So I think it's continuing to expand our workforce. We talked about the apprenticeships, so the workforce, but the types of businesses coming here will assure a more stable future for us, even in the worst of times. So thank you for all your numbers and your updates. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mr. Dare.
Yeah, just real quick question. With what the state put out of what they're anticipating the next 2 years of their budget shortage, how does that affect us, and how are we looking at that coming into next year, or does it?
Well, it does, to the point that we always have to be cautious that there's a legislative session coming up. It doesn't directly, from the standpoint that we have to realize that 75% of the economic engine, if you will, in Nevada is generated in Southern Nevada. So again, to Councilwoman Bivey's point, she made some excellent points there. What's going on in Southern Nevada is not happening here. So from that perspective, so much money is so much of the state's budget is derived from what's going on in Southern Nevada. The state will struggle in a large way because Las Vegas is. So, in a lot of ways, you can say as Vegas goes, so goes Nevada. 75% of the economic engine, that's just such a big part. We will be impacted from the standpoint that a lot of these revenue sources are the same. It's just that we have a smaller impact, if you will. So, we rely on sales taxes, they rely on sales taxes, we rely on property taxes, they rely on property taxes. So a lot of the revenue streams are the same. Not all of them, but a lot of them are. But so to the point that overall general economic activity is struggling, we will struggle in that. We'll partake in that, but not to the tune this time. This is different than what the previous recession was. But this time, we won't be on the cutting edge, if you will, or the leading edge of all those economic damages that we incurred before. So I see this as a point, but this is a point for us to be cautious. Because we are a sub-government, if you will. So, the state legislature does have a lot of power that can affect us. And we have to be cautious of that. So to the point that they have large budget holes, we need to be wary.
Okay, Mr. Anderson.
I wanted to thank you and your team, Jeff. You guys are doing an awesome job. In no way, I want to make sure you guys don't feel that you're not being appreciated, because the information you're providing for us is critical. And I just want to say thank you so very much for the work you guys are doing, putting all this together for us each month.
Oh, thank you, man. Thank you, Councilman Anderson. That's kind words.
Okay, anybody else wishing to speak? Well, I think something to consider here too is the state's budget is largely made up of schools and health and human services. So our most vulnerable population is what they want to cut, which is going to be difficult on all of us. So we got to keep that in mind as we move forward as the cities and counties. But thank you, Jeff. As always, great job.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go on to 7.5. Presentation, update on the Northern Nevada COVID-19 Eviction Prevention Program. And I see Ms. T. Tran on the screen.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and esteemed council and staff. Thank you for having me. I'm here to give you guys an update on where we are with the eviction prevention program. Just a quick background, obviously the purpose of this program was to provide resources and mediation services to landlords and tenants in hopes of preventing eviction filings from happening. Our launch date was September 14th, so we're just shy of 2 months of doing this. Advertising has largely been on social media. City of Sparks has been wonderful in supporting us in several press releases and whatnot. We do find that local news has been our biggest measurable response for people who are looking for some resources. We've also had several news articles and a couple of just different speaking engagements. We are also working hand in hand with several existing organizations in the region, Catholic Charities, Reno Housing Authority, the Sparks Family Resource Center, and Community Services Agency. All of those different resources can provide different things depending on people's situations. So we're thrilled to be working with them. Current case count, now I'm sure this is where you guys are going to be very interested in what we've been doing. We've had 45 applications and 67 doors approximately. So when I say doors, that means we've had multifamily managers reach out to us for assistance, saying that they have tenants who are behind. Now, our program is voluntary and mediation does take 2 people. So even though the landlord has stated to us, hey, I've got 30 people who need help, maybe only 10 of those people actually reached out to us. So that's why there's a difference between actual applications that have come in versus actual door count that we're aware of out there. Now, I will tell you the door count is probably actually much higher than this, but this is what we could confirm with several landlords. We've had several successful cases. Right now, I've got 7 that are actually closed, and they either received funding from a couple different resources, or they got into a payment plan that actually works for them, and they're continuing to be able to stay into their residence. We do have 8 pending applications as of today, well, as of Friday, with RHA. They applied for the rental assistance, and so they're just trying to work through the process. We're trying to assist them as best as we can in getting all their documentation and whatever RHA needs to get that rental assistance that's available. We also have 2 that are pending Salvation Army because they got another little round of funding. As we all know, the state eviction moratorium has expired, and right now there is the CDC eviction moratorium in effect until the end of this year, December 31st. Our state courts have implemented a mediation program that can be requested at the time of a tenant affidavit being filed. Obviously, we're trying to get to them before any court filings have happened, but now that our state moratorium's done, we are seeing a lot of filings happening. A lot of people are reaching out to us, asking for assistance. Washoe Legal and Nevada Legal Services are also current entities that are trying to assist tenants, but it's getting to be kind of messy, unfortunately. As of October 27th, the state program only had 1 mediation on record. I think that's just because of the court process and when they're actually being able to track that. I'm not quite sure, but that's for the state, so it's kind of weird. Sparks Justice Court was able to tell me that they had 23 eviction cases, 6 were for non-payment, and 5 did request mediation, and that was also through October 27th. I'm awaiting updated numbers. I actually spoke to a clerk this morning, and she informed me that there are quite a few people who are trying to figure out mediation and how that looks through the court, but all of those hearings are being pushed out towards the end of this month. As word continues to get about our program, we are still fielding some inquiries from Reno and from Sun Valley. Sun Valley, poor things, they're not necessarily within the Sparks Township, even though some of them do go to the Sparks Court for filings. So we are trying to assist them as best as we can, just to provide some guidance, because again, we're just seeing too much confusion and misinformation out there. As far as where we are with the budget and the money that was allocated to our program, we have sent out a request for the remaining 42.5. I did that last week. We absolutely anticipate more people reaching out, and as I have my email open, we just got another application come through. More landlords and tenants are reaching out to us because they don't know how the CDC moratorium works. The court filing process has changed as well because the state is trying to accommodate their mediation process. So lots of new information, very fluid situation, lots of questions. So we are we're fielding a lot more inquiries at this point in time. I think that with the CDC moratorium expiring at the end of this year, we're going to see a second wave, if you will, of filings. There are a few landlords right now who are respecting the CDC moratorium and are holding off. They are trying to continue to work with their tenants and whatnot. We are seeing also the opposite of that. I'll kind of get more into that in a little bit here. Some of the things that we're actively working on is really partnering with RHA and trying to get updates and good information to the people who are applying for that assistance. There was a lot of paperwork, and I think in Amy's last presentation, she had mentioned that there was going to be the self-attesting form to hopefully streamline that process so people could get through that faster and hopefully see disbursements faster. So we're trying to help facilitate that when we are directing people who are eligible for that assistance. Some of our people are still waiting on checklists or for the landlord to respond and give RHA whatever information they need. So it's still a bit of a process, but I'm hoping that with that self-attesting form, we're seeing something go a little bit quicker. We do have a second press release scheduled to go out this week. Obviously with the election coverage, we wanted to wait till that kind of died down so our stuff wouldn't get lost in that, because we still have a lot of people who A, don't know that rental assistance exists, or B, is unsure of how they can navigate the legal process and whatnot. And again, since we can direct them to several different resources or actually open the dialogue in their present situation, we want to continue to be able to do that. What we're finding now is that with the unfortunate rise that we're seeing in COVID cases, there's more employer or school mandated quarantines that are happening. So kids who are having to quarantine are now forcing parents to stay home with them, or workplace quarantines are obviously making it so that people's paychecks are starting to come up short. We're now dealing with a different kind of clientele than we were 60 days ago. 60 days ago, it was I lost my job in March or April, and now I'm trying to catch up, and so yada, yada. Now what we're seeing is people who have been employed and were able to make it with whatever savings or resources that they had throughout this entire summer and fall. Now they're having these employer mandated quarantines, and they're going, I'm not going to make it for December. They're current all the way up until now. But now we're starting to see that people are really getting to be lean. And so it's providing for a different set of issues, because a lot of the rental assistance also requires that you're already behind. We have a lot of people who are trying to be proactive. And again, this is where we're still trying to open up that dialogue with the landlord and the tenant to say what's actually realistic and a repayment plan if they are falling behind. But that's what we're really concerned about right now. For some of the bigger communities, and when I say communities, I mean multifamily apartment type housing that are filing 7-day pair quits, regardless of the CDC moratorium. It's very interesting because we're seeing local attorneys tell them don't do that. And then we see attorneys that serve clients with assets in multiple states saying do it, because it'll be up to the judge to decide what happens. So they just kind of want to push it through the system and see what happens. It's not the nicest way to go about it. We're not super thrilled with that response, but that is what we're seeing out there in the market right now. We are still seeing, again, the delay in rental assistance or unemployment or PUA benefits. So that still rings true. Unfortunately, there's not a lot we can do to try and get unemployment and PUA faster. So for those who are receiving pair quit notices, again, we are referring them to the Justice Court, and we're encouraging them to call the clerks, because again, every day things are changing. Paperwork is very difficult to get through, and these people are already at an emotional high point to where the stress is at a totally different level. They're getting to be really, really overwhelmed with filling out forms, having to continue to tell people that they can't pay their rent. So we're seeing a lot of unfortunate stress, and it's getting to be pretty emotional for people because this just isn't going away. So the other thing that I would say is, while we do have landlords who are wonderful and are working with their tenants and wanting to communicate and are thankful for that mode of communication, there are landlords who are not, and they're not wanting to cooperate with anybody to help the tenant get to where they need to. So whether it's us or an organization like RHA or Family Resources, we all need some sort of document and something from the landlord to get us to help. And sometimes we're just not getting that. So that's unfortunate. Where we are now, 60 days into this, is that we still think getting the word out to the public is our high priority. Because again, it's crazy to us that people still don't know that there's rental assistance out there. $2 million was allocated to RHA, and people still don't know about that. So it's crazy, but we need to continue pushing that message, obviously, so that people understand that there are resources out there. And again, we're just very concerned that with the CDC eviction moratorium expiring at the end of this year, we will see another series of filings, especially for the people who just now start to fall behind. So I'm not even talking about the people who were behind. I'm talking about the people who they're going to have a really lean winter and they're kind of in trouble. I know that there's a lot of conversation going on with the CARES funds and how they're allocated and when they're allocated, and we're all under this deadline to get it spent by the end of the year, so it's very stressful. I almost think that based on what we're seeing out there, it's almost not a rental assistance effort, it's a relocation effort. And I don't know if pivoting funds to do that is possible, but I will say that based on what we're dealing with every day and the conversations that we're having, people are going to have to surrender their property. We're trying to get them to surrender it instead of being evicted, because an eviction obviously hurts your credit and really hurts you down the road to getting into something else. So I almost think that we need to rethink how we're attacking this and talking about helping to relocate people instead of trying to get them to stay somewhere where a landlord isn't really wanting them to stay. Our region, as Councilwoman Bybee said, is so unique because we've done a really great job of trying to be in other industries other than gaming and tourism. But in that, we are still continuing to see an influx into our region. So normally this is yay, we're very excited about that growth. But right now, it's hurting us. Market rent is at an all-time high. I think you guys have seen that home sales are at an all-time high. So again, while we're excited about this influx into our region, we're worried about the people who are just living and working here currently, because if they're not able to pay their current rent, we're not sure where they're going to go and have to pay a security deposit, higher market rent, so on and so forth. So very multi-layered. You guys know me, I start to kind of get a little deep into this, but it is so multi-layered that we need to kind of at least look at all of these things. So with that, that's our update. We are seeing some success. I'm glad to see that we have been able to help several people in staying in their place, getting them assistance and allowing them to continue doing the best that they can in whatever their situation is. But of course, at this point, I'm open to any questions, comments, or concerns.
Questions from the council? Ms. Bybee.
I have a question. Yeah, T, thank you for the update. I do have one question on the first bucket of money, the 42.5 that we allocated to you. Has that all been spent, and how many people? You talked about 8 pending and 7 cases. Like, what is our average per case that you've been able to expand it? And is that money gone and now we're moving into the second half?
So our case was, our cost was based on per case. So I unfortunately didn't have direct funding to be able to give to people to help them bridge whatever that gap is. So that's why we have to get them over to RHA or a different entity. So for us, our case cost was a flat rate. So yes, we are just about there, and the rest of it, we've got probably 2,000 left in that first disbursement, but that's all going to advertising and just maintaining our website and doing just those operational kinds of things. So we're basically tapped out and ready to move on to the next half.
Okay, and total cases then so far that you've seen?
45. And actually, we've just had 3 more come in on my email as I'm sitting here, so.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions from the council? Mr. Dare?
Yeah, I just, we have a month left, and I'd also like to say anything we can try to do to help anybody in these situations. So good job. Thank you for being our representative out there. But what would you anticipate? I mean, December's coming quickly, and we have a limited time to spend a particular amount of money. Do you see that we'll be able to reach out even with some of the stuff you shared? Just, I mean, the reality is we really want to help as many as we can. and be able to keep them in their home, especially during the winter and Christmas and, during this COVID time. COVID's not going away anytime quickly. And so what's your thoughts on as we come into December and our deadlines?
From what I understand with the CARES funding, and please correct me if I'm mistaken, but as long as it's allocated towards something, then you're okay. Do I think we actually could reach the rest of the case number that we would need to with that remaining 42,500 by the end of December? I do, if we're very smart about getting the word out to the public, because again, that's where we're finding the issue. There's a lot of information out there, but it's a lot of misinformation. People are very confused and they're very overwhelmed. So I think if we're, because I'll be honest, I didn't anticipate that being such a barrier, I guess. With, Sparks and Reno being as small as they are, there's just, I think people are just so overwhelmed. So I think with a smart PR push, then yes, we could actually find that case number by the end of December. Do I think that's actually the smartest thing to do? No, because the CDC eviction moratorium expires at the end of December. So right now we have some people who are going to be okay. But on January 1st, we will have a wave of people who will not be okay. So does the CARES funding say, hey, you have to literally have that number at the end of December? Or does it say, reporting and everything through the first quarter into January, and if you can show that those numbers are there and it's still being allocated and used in the appropriate way to provide for eviction prevention due to COVID, I don't know. So I'd like to see this keep going. Obviously, I do anticipate it going into the first quarter of next year, though.
I think that's a good question. Neil, do you, Senor Cruz, do we have to have that spent before? Which direction is right on that?
So this is where things are a little bit vague, and I'm going to invite Jeff Kronk into the room. Julie, if you'll readmit him, please, because he's more up to speed on this than I am. My 30,000 foot level understanding is that we do have to have the monies expended by the 30th of December if we would have expended them in the normal course of business. So it's a roundabout way of saying you can't go out and prepay 12 months worth of rent because the rental industry doesn't work that way. So that's where things do get a little bit squishy. But I know that we're all working very hard to expend as much of this money that we've got budgeted, if you will, before that December 30th deadline. So Jeff, you want to jump in here and clean up whatever mess I just made?
Yes, carry on. If I heard your full comment there, Neil, I think I heard you correctly. You were exactly right in that the feds originally said that we had to expend all the dollars, meaning cash out the door by December 30th. But since then, they backed off on that and they gave a more clarification saying that as long as the services or goods, whatever you happen to be purchasing, are received by December 30th, you can settle up accounts later, and that's normal course of business. There is a question that a lot of folks are trying to figure out about prepaying. And we can't prepay for goods or services unless it's something that we normally do. So, some of that's a little squishy, it's a little vague. So the way we're approaching all of these is that basically all services and goods have to be received by December 30th, and then we can certainly pay the money in January if it comes to that. Did that help?
Yeah, that helps because I do anticipate. I think there's, as soon as that eviction moratorium comes off, that's obviously when we are going to have some bigger concerns too. Thank you.
Any other questions from the council? I have a couple questions, T. One, which court do we go to if there's an eviction? Is it Muni or is it the Justice Court?
It's the Sparks Justice Court.
Okay. And then have we had any of these cases go through there yet?
So I have, unfortunately, several that have started the process with the filing of the tenant affidavit, because even though the landlord knew we were working with them, the minute our moratorium expired, they just went ahead and filed. So how far they've gotten in the process, not very. For the ones that we're working with, again, they've filed the initial tenant affidavit. Some of them are requesting the mediation that's provided through the court. But the closest I heard a hearing was like November 30th, because now they have to set up the state appointed mediator, and then who knows what happens there. And again, the paperwork seems to be a little bit lengthier, and it's a little bit confusing. I looked at the tenant affidavit myself, and there's a lot of room for error. In talking to the clerk this morning, she said the same, unfortunately. They had to roll this paperwork out very quickly, and there's not a fantastic system in place. So things are kind of falling through the cracks, and I'm just encouraging those who unfortunately have had to start this process to continue to communicate with the clerks and try and get live updates from them as their filing moves along. So.
Okay, I appreciate that. Any other questions from the council? Okay, well, thanks, T. You're doing a good job. It's a sad situation, and I happen to agree that it's going to get worse after the first of the year. All right, let's move on to 7.6, presentation update on grant programming contract between the City of Sparks and the Reno Housing Authority for residential rental assistance. And I see Miss Amy Jones on the screen. Go take away after you unmute yourself.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Lawson. Thank you, council, for having me to provide this update. And I want to thank T for all of the hard work that she's doing. We've been trying to work together to get some of those families approved for the rental assistance. To give some updates on the funding provided by the City of Sparks. First, I will start with the CDBG COVID funds. That was $402,000. That funding had a different requirement, lower income level. We have expended all of those funds. With the $2 million, as of today, we've expended $547,317 of that funding. Everybody now, if they're a resident of the City of Sparks, will be referred to the Sparks $2 million allocation. A total of 167 families have been helped between those two programs. And so total funding that has gone to City of Sparks residents between those two programs is $949,939. So we're still working at spending the $2 million. Overall, we've received 109 applications from City of Sparks residents. And so we are working those applications. Currently, we've received for all of our funding sources 2,960 applications. And so we had 4 different funding sources that we were provided. As of today, we have 923 packets. And so when I say that, those are among all of the funding sources. I'm not able to break out specifically the Sparks residents, but of those 923, we have all the information from those individuals. So right now the staff are working on those packets, reviewing all of the information provided to determine that eligibility. And I have to give a shout out to my staff. They have been working diligently. This program has definitely consumed a lot of our time, but we've done it because this is an area where we can help the community in a different way that we normally do with our normal funding sources. So with that, looking at projections, where we're going to end up with the money, current average payout for each individual is $6,078 right now. And so if you guys recall, the payments can be made from April through December. And so that's our average as of right now. If we're able to approve all 923 of those those applications that we have where we have all of the information, that would be $5.6 million. Again, I apologize, I can't break out specifically the Sparks resident applications, but looking at that we do still have a lot of applications and funding to spend going forward. I know we are getting close on time. And again, we've been working diligently. The staff has been coming in on weekends to make sure that they can process those files. So I do anticipate us using more of that $2 million. If again, all goes well with those 923, then we would expend that funding, I would presume. Just trying to think if I had anything else. We are working with the state mediation program. We have not had any contact from them as of yet, but we do have a contact with the state that we will be working with. So if they do have individuals, we will help work them through the process. As far as our process and the documentation, we did implement that attestation form, and that has been extremely helpful to move the documentation and move these applicants through the process. So we are seeing them move quickly through the process now, which is extremely helpful. I just want to give you two quick stories, and then I will take any questions that you may have. We did have one story, and while it's extremely sad, it also is showing how beneficial this funding is. We had a mother and a son living together. Unfortunately, the mother passed away from COVID. He lost her income, and so he did get behind on the rent. He was found eligible for the program and was just ecstatic, extremely grateful that he could benefit from this program, as well as the landlord was so happy that she could notify him. So this is helping individuals stay in their homes. The staff shared one other story with me. A family with 4 children, they applied for the funding. They thought they would only be eligible for July through December. When the staff followed up, they were actually eligible for April through December. So the family, again, was so appreciative. They were crying when they found the news. So I want you all to know this money is really going to families that need this, and they're so appreciative that they're staying in their homes. And I will answer any questions you may have.
Questions from the council?
I just have one question. We have, how many did you say were on your list now?
We've received 2,960 applications total for all funding sources. Of those, 809 are from City of Sparks residents.
And we've helped 147.
167 City of Sparks residents, yes.
Okay, so we know that, so we do know that we're only going to be able to help. If you've already spent almost $1 million, we know we're only going to get to help about 160 more people potentially on average. And then, and how long does it take from the time we get them come in to where they get paid at this point?
At this point, I'm going to say it's at least 30 days. But we are working and communicating with the landlord throughout the process. As soon as we know that that individual is eligible, we do let that landlord know that we will be making that payment.
Very cool. So, but am I right? So we have easily 600 people who need help are there any funds outside of the funds we've given from the state that can help some of these people?
Yes, and I should have mentioned that as well. So we did receive $5 million from the state of Nevada. And so we are still expending those funds. We've expended $1 million of the state of Nevada funds. We also received $1.5 million from the city of Reno. So those funds have also been expended. So right now we are just focusing on the remaining funding from the city of Sparks. And that's about 1.4, a little over 1.4 million. And then the remaining funding from the state of Nevada, which is just under 4 million. So we will be funneling those individuals there. And just to give you an overall of out of all of the funding sources that we've received, we've paid $3.4 million in rental assistance to the entire region.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay. Well, thank you, Amy. Appreciate it. We got to give away some money in a hurry now, huh? We're getting down to the end.
We're working on it. Thank you,
know.
Mayor Lawson. I appreciate it.
Yep, I know you guys are doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on. 7.7, presentation update of the City of Sparks Small Business Assistant Grant Program. And I'm assuming this is Mr. Ornelas.
Good afternoon, Mayor Lawson, members of the council. This is Armando Ornelas, the Assistant Community Services Director. I'm going to share my screen here. And okay, do you have the full screen there?
I think so.
We have the speaker preview screen, Armando.
Okay, let's see. Let's try this again. Let's see. Is that working now?
That is certainly better. That'll work.
Okay, all right. I apologize. Mayor Lawson, members of the council, what I'm going to do today is provide you a description of this program because I think we've not had that opportunity to do so, in a public setting so far. And the goal here is to provide you that description and then to give you basically a status update as to where things stand specifically. The approach that this city staff has taken is to basically do a hybrid type approach where we have contracted with the National Development Council, and that contract is in the amount of $45,750. And they're basically providing us assistance with the implementation of the program. The reality is they're doing the heavy lifting because they set up and are hosting the online application process for applicants using Zoom grants. They are assisting city staff with all of the CARES Act requirements needed for compliance purposes. They are doing the initial review of applications and making a determination of eligible businesses and confirming required conditions have been met for initial approvals. After city approval, they will then work with the businesses to finalize the documentation necessary for closing and funding. And that includes specifically the execution of a grant agreement. In terms of the city staff's role, we are reviewing the applications that the National Development Council staff has recommended for funding and making initial and final approval decisions. And that initial and final approval is an important step to note. In order to have basically two different staff members involved in that process, just for purposes of, if you will, transparency and appropriateness, you have one staff member who is taking the recommendation from NDC and saying, yes, I agree, this is an eligible application. And then once a grant agreement has been executed, then you have a second staff member in the city's financial services department who is then saying, yes, let's cut the check or let's transfer the funds. And if you're a business and you wanted to apply for our program, these are the criteria that you had to meet. You have to have both State of Nevada and City of Sparks business licenses to qualify. You have to be physically located within the city's city limits, within the corporate boundary, that is. You had to have been legally established as of January 1, and you had to be able to demonstrate that you actually had generated substantive revenues prior to basically that pandemic start date of March 15th. You have to be able to provide documentation demonstrating that the business, in fact, took a hit as a result of the pandemic, and provide a plan for how the funds will be utilized. And then this is important to note, if you had received SBA funding, for example, from the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program or the Payroll Protection Program, that did not disqualify you from applying and receiving funds through this program. In terms of the eligible uses of grant funds, the first is just general working capital, utilities, payroll that's not covered by the Payroll Protection Program, inventory, PPE, personal protective equipment that you would want to purchase both in the future, as well as if you had receipts for PPE that you previously purchased, you could be reimbursed for those costs. And then if you wanted to undertake some retrofits of your business facility, for example, you've seen, I'm sure in businesses that you've entered into, the plexiglass screens that a lot of businesses are utilizing to provide a barrier between their staff and the public. There were some ineligible businesses. Those included federally prohibited businesses. Cannabis businesses are the example that most comes to mind. Adult-oriented businesses, and really specifically, this means in conformance with the city's zoning code, sexually oriented businesses. Bars are an eligible business. Businesses with over 50 employees, those that have either state or federal tax liens, or nonprofit organizations. Okay, so if you applied, how much were you eligible to receive in terms of the grant amount? And I will note that originally the city allocated $869,000 for this purpose. And how much a business could receive was tied to the number of employees it has. So a business with up to 4 employees could qualify for $10,000. Businesses with between 5 and 19 employees could qualify for up to $20,000, and those with 20 to 50 employees for $25,000. In addition, the PPE grants, and this was based on the reimbursement for past PPE purchases, could qualify for up to $5,000 of reimbursement. Okay, so I'm now going to describe to you what we have received in the way of applications and how they have been categorized to date. The application period closed a week ago today on November 2nd. And so the rest of these figures are as of today. So the city of Sparks received a total of 77 applications. 12 of those were deemed as ineligible, and I'll break those down for you very quickly. 7 of them were actually not located inside the city of Sparks. As you know, sometimes there's some confusion because they'll have a post office address or postal service address that's in Sparks, and in fact, they're not located in Sparks. So 7 of the 12 were not in Sparks. 2 did not demonstrate financial hardship. In other words, the financial documentation that they provided indicated that their receipts had not gone down as this year. 2 were not-for-profit organizations, and then 1 had over 50 employees. So that accounts for the 12 that were deemed ineligible. Of the 65 that have been deemed eligible, the city staff have initially approved 53 of those, and the amount of funding for those 53 is $863,348. So you'll note that's just that's less than $6,000 less than what was originally allocated for the program. So essentially we stopped there, if you will, as at least as of this morning. There are another 12 businesses that have submitted applications with applications that total approximately $255,000 or about another $250,000. I apprised the city manager of these figures today. And the manager's direction to me has been to look to increase the allocation for this program so that ultimately the city is able to fund all of the eligible applications. So again, that would represent about $250,000 in an increased allocation for this program for these purposes, and that would allow us to provide a grant to all of the eligible businesses that have applied. So in terms of where things stand, again, city staff began their review and approval of eligible applications last week. Starting this week, in the Zoom grant software, staff have said, okay, starting this morning with those 53, we've approved those. Now NDC will be sending the grant agreement to those businesses. Once they return them, then we can look to actually have the second part of the city approval and start the disbursement of funds. So it's possible that will happen as early as this week. More likely it's, or almost certainly, funds will start to flow, I expect, next week. So the last step would be that we would need to revise the city's contract with the National Development Council to reflect the fact that we're looking to increase the allocation for this program to fund those other 12 businesses that are eligible, and so their fee would go up accordingly. Their fee equals 5% of the funds to be allocated through the program. So that concludes my presentation, and I will do my best to answer any and all questions that you have.
Questions from the council? Ms. Bybee.
Yes, thank you, Armando, and I appreciate the in-depth explanation of the program, which I think is awesome that we're able to do something for our businesses. I mean, we've said this from the beginning. The rental assistance was important, our food funding that we've done, food security, and the businesses that have been hit so hard was critically important to us, especially for those with less than 50 employees, I think is a priority for sure. I guess my concern and question would be, we basically have another $250,000 that we would have to allocate, and I guess this is probably to the city manager, where we would plan on those funds coming from. And I know we've talked throughout with all of the rental assistance and the CARES Act funding of being able to be fluid and to pivot if we had to, because we don't know if some funds either won't be allocated or we've dispersed and or not needed, or things are shifting day by day. So is it additional CDGB money? Is it CARES Act funding we think might be able to funnel? But that's $250,000 is a lot of money. So can you give me an idea kind of what your direction is on where we could find, and I think we need to do it. Absolutely. I support that. Just wondering where we get it.
Yeah. And yeah, for the record, Neil Kircher, city manager. I appreciate the support and the intent behind trying to funnel as much of this as we can into our business community. And that is what was underlying my direction this morning to Armando and staff to let's go ahead and set ourselves up to do that. Knowing that we would need to amend our contract with the NDC to give them their 5% take and set ourselves up to do that. So there are really two, the CARES Act money is the pot of money we're looking at to spend here. And so that's fixed at $19.2 million. So at this point, there are really two broad buckets of potential resources that could come from. One is that if we do have an underspend in other community programs, that we could spend, we could take it from there. And then if, if we don't have it, then the alternate location, and the only alternate CARES Act location, is to take it out of what we are currently planning to reimburse ourselves for in terms of COVID-related expenditures. And so that's getting into that, that $9 million worth of staff time and PPE and things that Jeff walked us through earlier today. We would essentially be considering or committing to the idea that maybe what we're going to have for ourselves would be a little bit less, so that we could put a little bit more into the community. And as Jeff, now to circle back and try and kind of tie all this together, Jeff spoke of currently we're at about an 80-20 split in terms of what we have spent physically, in terms of 80% being for internal expenses and 20% being out of the community. Jeff acknowledged that number, that ratio is going to change greatly here in the coming 45 days as we finish this up, as we get into the homeless expenditures, as we get into paying for the wastewater study at UNR and the other kinds of outreach that we're doing. Where I see us landing is it probably at roughly a 60-40 split, where 60% of that 19.2 would essentially be helping the city make itself whole, and 40% would be going into the community. So this extra $250,000 would perhaps alter that even a little bit more, where a little bit less is staying in the inside the city and a little bit more is going into the community. But there are really two options. One, to really kind of summarize it, one, another external program underperforms and we have room, we'll use that money there. Otherwise, if those things all perform, overperform, which is what I think we're hoping for, then it's what we're paying ourselves back is the last place we can go.
Okay, I appreciate that, and I would fully agree with that. I think it's important, and especially when we see other communities and across the country of where they're spending the CARES Act money. It really is critically important. I think our priority has to be our community, and I think we come behind that. So priority for me is what we do in the community more so than what we, paying ourselves back and figuring out budget-wise how we make ourselves whole is another conversation, but I think the priority absolutely has to be community, and I appreciate that and I support it. Thank you so much.
Councilman Dare.
Yes, thank you. And I'm very supportive as well. And I want to thank you for opening that up for the other 12. I think it's important if we have a community as needed and we have this money that came in, that it goes there. And I definitely do appreciate that. And so that's my main thing I just wanted to say. I think that's the right place for that to go. And so I don't have a question, but I just want to make that statement.
Right. Mr. Abbott.
Yeah, how are we doing with the ones that are ineligible? Are they getting an email, phone call to just let them know?
Councilmember Abbott, Armando Ornelas, yes, they have been notified by NDC.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there an ability if they filed something wrong? Maybe they did have a loss, they just filed it wrong. I don't know. Maybe they transpired or inverse the number. Can they reapply or?
I think they've been given the opportunity in general. If we've identified the issue, or NDC has identified the issue in terms of, or the reason why they were deemed ineligible. So, they had an opportunity to respond. And I think, to be candid, Councilmember Abbott, I think what we have tried to do is that we set out the rules, if you will, in terms of eligible businesses. And while, you can in some cases make an argument that, that maybe this is special, if you will, because, there are very likely other businesses that perhaps fit the same, might be able to cite the same reason. We've been consistent in saying, these are our criteria. If you meet them, you can apply, and if you did not, then you could not.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? All right, thank you, Armando. And I think the right thing to do, Neil, is to go ahead and fund that extra $250,000. That just makes perfect sense for our people.
Thank you, Mayor Lawson.
Okay. With that, we're going to move on to 7.9, 10, and 11, I believe all of those are yours, Mr. Kreutz.
Yes, sir. Mayor Lawson and members of the city council, for the record, Neil Kreutz, your city manager, here announcing a total of 6 upcoming vacancies across 3 of our committees, 2 committees and a commission, if you will. The first one, 7.9, is we have 3 vacancies for 2-year terms that will end in November in 2022 on our Arts and Culture Advisory Committee. Vacancies we're looking for to fill the 3, 1 member with a humanities background, 1 with a performing arts background, and 1 with a visual arts background. Applications will be accepted through 5 p.m. on Friday the 13th, so this coming Friday. Moving on to 7.10, 710, we have a single vacancy on our Enterprise Fund Advisory Committee for a 4-year term that will run through December 31st of 2024. And we are looking for somebody with expertise in the construction industry. Applications for that position will also be accepted until this Friday, the 13th at 5 p.m. And finally, 7.11, the Sparks Planning Commission. We have 2 vacancies coming up on the Sparks Planning Commission for 4-year terms that would run through December 30th of 2024. You must be a resident of the city of Sparks and a registered voter in order to apply for either one of those vacancies. And like the 2 that I've just finished up, applications will be accepted through this Friday, the 13th at 5 p.m. Anyone interested in applying for any of these vacancies should visit the city's website and fill out a community service application. You get to our website by going to www.cityofsparks.us/get-involved, all one word. Once you're there, click on volunteering for a Sparks board, commission, or committee, and fill out the form and press send. And we will look forward to hearing from you. Thank you, Mayor Lawson.
I'm gonna put my glasses on so I can see you. Anybody? Bueller?
I think we are ready to move on to our consent items, sir.
That's what I asked for. I'm looking for a motion for consent items.
Oh, move to
Anybody?
approve consent items as they are. I didn't hear you say it.
Oh, maybe I spoke too fast?
Second, Abbott.
Okay, so we got a motion by Councilman Dare, second by Councilman Abbott to accept items 8.1 on the consent agenda. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, moving on to 9.1, general business. Consideration, discussion, and possible approval of the city manager's recommended appointment to the Technical Review Committee, Washoe County Home Consortium, for a partial term ending June 30th, 2021, from the following list of applicants in alphabetical order. T. Tran. Looking for a motion. You got a list of 1. Motion, Mr. Anderson.
Yes, I move to approve city manager's recommendation to appoint T-Tran to the Technical Review Committee, Washoe County Home Consortium, for a partial term ending June 30th, 2021.
And Ms. Bybee, second.
I'll second the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Good job, T. 9.4, presentation, discussion, and possible approval of an employment agreement for John A. Martini for the position of Assistant City Manager effective November 9th, 2020, with a yearly salary of $214,947.20 plus benefits. Mr. Kreutz, or is Mindy gonna do this?
I will take these, Mayor Lawson. For the
Okay.
record, Neil Kreutz, your city manager. And if it's okay with you and the council, I would like to combine the next 4 items into a single presentation and then ask that you take each one individually. The items are substantially similar, so rather than having me repeat the same thing 4 times in a row, I'll try and save you a little bit of time. With that said, what we're doing here today is amending employment contracts that we have with our senior staff, our department heads and directors across the city. Right now, they're all on individual calendar year, 1-year calendar labor agreements. And then additionally, we have an executive resolution that lists some of their benefits. So we've got contract terms, if you will, listed in 2 locations. And so there are really 2 things that I'm trying to accomplish here with this series of contract amendments today. The first is to get us off of a calendar year contract term. That has us, considering, whether or not we want to continue somebody employment right ahead of the holidays. Already a busy time in the city, as that's when we're really in the throes of the budget process. So I'm looking to go to a fiscal year type of term. And then I'm also looking to lengthen the term of employment and have it be, essentially a 2-year reapproving agreement unless I signify otherwise. So similar to what you saw for our new Police Chief Kroll and Assistant City Manager McCormick 2 weeks ago, these contracts are substantially the same. The initial term would run through June 30th of 2022. And then I would give them notice annually if I'm not going to renew. So at the shortest, they've always got essentially 13 months of contract time ahead of them. Of course, with terms in there for termination with cause or termination without cause, and opportunities to take us down that road. But that gets me to the second thing that I'm trying to accomplish here, and that is right now with their labor agreements, some of their contract terms are in their employment agreement, and some are in the executive resolution. I want to go with each of these employees so that every one of their contract terms is in that employment agreement. We will essentially, it will allow us to convert the executive employee resolution to a pay band listing, and everything else will be stripped out. So that removes the opportunity for there to be confusion or potentially even disagreement between an employment agreement and an executive resolution as to what the terms say. So this is representative of a cleanup effort. So doing 2 things: getting us off a calendar year contract, extending the term a bit, and doing a little bit of cleanup. So what you see here, the first one is for Assistant City Manager John Martini, and the salary was listed as read there by Mayor Lawson. With that, I'd be happy to try and answer any questions as it comes to Mr. Martini.
There's no questions, then I'm looking for a motion on 9.4. And Neil, we're going to do 9.8 and 9.9 also in that group.
Well, I do want to come back and speak to those as their own pair of items,
Okay.
their cleanup. So I'd like to
That's
go
fine.
ahead and do 9, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and then come back and talk to you a little bit more, and then ask you to consider 8 and 9.
Okay, so I need to make a Mr. Dare. I need you to
I'll make a motion. I move to approve the Assistant City Manager Employment Agreement AC 5710 between the City of Sparks and John Martini with a yearly salary of $214,947.20 plus benefits. And I'd like to say he's done a great job.
Looking for a second. Mr. Abbott, second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Okay, looking for a motion on 9.5. Looking for a motion on 9.5. Mr. Abbott. Am I not coming through? I'm gonna have to look and see if my box is lit up. Is that, I'm speaking too quickly?
No, they're just ignoring.
I think we can.
Okay. Mr. Abbott, looking for a motion. Go ahead.
I move to approve the Chief Financial Officer Employment Agreement AC-5711 between the City of Sparks and Jeff Kronk with a yearly salary of $199,056 plus benefits.
Okay, looking for a second. Mr. Anderson, second.
Yes, sir.
Any further discussion? See none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, 9.6. Who wants to make this motion? Anybody? Mr. Dare, go ahead.
Sure. I move to approve the Fire Chief Employment Agreement AC 5712 between the City of Sparks and James Reed with a yearly salary of $199,056.00 plus benefits.
Looking for a second? Ms. Bybee, second.
I'll second that motion. Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, 9.7. Who wants to make this motion?
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Vanderwell.
I move to approve the Human Resource Director's Employment Agreement AC-5713 between the City of Sparks and Mindy Falk.
Okay, looking for a second? Mr.
I'll
Anderson?
second.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, 9.8, back to you, Mr. Kreutz.
Thank you, Mayor Lawson. For the record, Neil Kreutz, your city manager. And 9.8 and 9.9 are amendments to, proposed amendments to the labor agreements or the employment agreements that you approved 2 weeks ago for Assistant City Manager Allison McCormick and Police Chief Chris Crawford. And what we had there was an oversight in the sick leave conversion language in the agreements that were presented to you 2 weeks ago. One of the options was not adequately described. So we have made those changes. If you approve them today, they would be consistent with the 4 agreements that you just approved. So this is these 2 items really are cleanup from an oversight that got by all of us as we were reviewing things a couple of weeks ago. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions? See none, looking for a motion? Ms. Vanderwell?
I move to approve the amended employment agreement AC-5707 between the City of Sparks and Allison L. McCormick for the position of Assistant City Manager.
Okay, looking for a second? Mr. Anderson?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, moving on to 9.9. Any discussion?
Okay, so that was 9.9 that
I messed up.
that's okay. That was 9.9 that you guys just approved. So now we got, if we can go back and do 9.8.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Ms. Bybee.
Okay. 9.8. I move to approve the amended employment agreement AC 5706 between the City of Sparks and Chris Crawford for the position of Police Chief.
Okay. Looking for a second?
Second.
Second for Ms. Vanderwell. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay.
Thank you very much, Mayor and Council, for approval on all 6 agreements.
That's a
Appreciate it.
pretty good leadership team there.
Yes, it is.
Okay, we're moving on to item 9.10, the first reading. And I don't have any language on that, so who's going to read the first reading for me?
I'll read those, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Julie.
If, with your permission, I would like to read them, the next 3 items. They're all first readings. Is that okay with you?
Please.
First reading of Bill 2779 to annex real property approximately 34.71 acres in size, generally located at 555 Highland Ranch Parkway, Washoe County, Nevada. Upon annexation, the parcel will convert from a Washoe County zoning designation of general rural to a City of Sparks zoning designation of agriculture. Bill number 2780, first reading of Bill 2780 to rezone real property approximately 34.71 acres in size, generally located at 555 Highland Ranch Parkway, from 34.71 acres of agriculture to 10 acres of single-family residential 6,000 square foot lots and 24.71 acres of agriculture A5. Bill number 2781, first reading of Bill 2781 for approval of the development agreement, amendment number 2 pursuant to NRS 278.0201 between the City of Sparks QK LLC and Five Ridges Development Company Incorporated, providing for planning and development of a site 421.58 acres in size located at 555 Highland Ranch Parkway, Sparks, Nevada. A public hearing will be held on bills 2779, 2780, and 2781 and acted upon at the regular meeting of the Sparks City Council on Monday, November 23rd at 2 p.m. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, moving on to item 10, public hearing and action items unrelated to planning and zoning. 10.1, this is a second reading. And Julie, are you going to take this one again?
No, sir, that'll be Brandon.
This will be me. So Mayor Lawson, members of the council, Brandon Sendall, Assistant City Attorney for the record. The item before you here is basically a proposed cleanup of the Sparks Municipal Code relating to hemp and hemp-based products and marijuana. So a little background, in 2018, the federal government passed an updated farm bill that removed hemp from the definition of marijuana under oversight from the FDA. So under that 2018 federal change, hemp strains, and hemp is defined as a strain that has a THC concentration of less than 0.3% THC. So pretty low. But based on that federal change, strains of cannabis that are under that threshold are no longer marijuana. And so they're no longer under the Controlled Substance Act and essentially legal with that FDA oversight. So in 2019, the Nevada legislature updated the state law to reflect that same change. We updated we being the state updated the hemp statutes to reflect back to federal law, and also updated the definition of marijuana to exclude hemp. So basically the sale of hemp is not the sale of marijuana under state law. Our business license division got a question from a CBD seller, because CBD oil is made from hemp. It has the THC concentration that's below that threshold. Asked whether the sale of CBD oil in the city of Sparks requires a marijuana license rather than just a regular business license. So we looked into it, and our definition of marijuana tracked that prior definition of marijuana from 2017 and didn't exclude, it doesn't currently exclude hemp. So under that definition, technically the sale of hemp, CBD oil, other products made from those strains of cannabis that have below that threshold of 0.3% THC would require a marijuana privileged business license. The city hasn't implemented any updates to these definitions since it was enacted in 2017 after the passage of question 2. So staff believes it would make sense to adopt similar amendments to remain consistent with federal and state law. And I'm available to answer any questions.
Okay, questions from the council? Mr. Anderson.
Yeah, Brandon, I just want to make sure I'm hearing correctly in that if we have a hemp business that is currently operating in Sparks, all this would do would just clear up the language. In no way would it impact them other than the fact that now they're meeting municipal code once we clean this up.
Exactly, because currently they're in compliance with state and federal law, but the city code hasn't been updated with those 2018 and 2019 changes in federal and state law. So really what it's clarifying is you don't need a privileged business license. You don't need a marijuana business license. You can produce hemp or sell hemp products under a general business license.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none, this is a public hearing, so we're going to open this up to the public for public comment at this time. Ms. Torres, do we have any public comment?
Please dial *9 from your telephone now, or use the raise your hand function on Zoom if you'd like to provide public comment for this item. Mr. Mayor, I don't see any public comment.
Okay, with that being said, we'll bring it back to the dais. Looking for a motion. Mr. Abbott.
I move to adopt Bill 2778, amending Section 5.80.010E of the Sparks Municipal Code to amend the definition of marijuana to clarify that hemp, as defined by federal and state law, is excluded from the definition of marijuana.
Okay, looking for a second. Mr. Anderson.
Yes, sir, I'll second that.
Second, okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, we don't have any items on number 11. Number 12, comments from the public. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment?
If you would like to provide public comment for this item, please dial *9 from your telephone or use the raise your hand function on Zoom now, please. And we don't have any public comment, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so we'll move on to item 12.2, comments from the mayor, city council, and city manager. Anybody? Ms. Spivey?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As the election dust is still settling, I would just like to congratulate our council members who have won re-election, Councilman Abbott in Ward 1 and Councilman Anderson in Ward 3, and then Councilman Dare, who ran a really hard-fought race, unopposed. But basically to congratulate all three of you, especially on running in a year that was unlike any other. I'm glad I wasn't on the ballot right now because trying to campaign during COVID is certainly a challenge, but I want to congratulate my colleagues and look forward to our continued work together for our city and our community and what's best for the city of Sparks. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Vanderwell, you had your hand up.
I did, and Councilwoman Bybee took all of mine. So I wanted to also echo, and I'm looking forward to continue working with these great re-elected council people.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Dare, come on.
Oh, have a great day. Be safe. Don't give anybody sickness. Please, please, please be smart. And we are seeing record things happen in our community. So we just ask everyone to work together, be kind, and step out there. But it's an honor to be still here and to serve as a city councilman for our city. It's great to be part of the team. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. All right, anyone else?
Mr. Mayor, Chet Adams.
Mr. Adams?
Thank you, sir. I'd like to introduce to the city council our newest attorney on staff, Mr. Barrick Potter. Mr. Potter will be taking the place of the assistant city manager that you just swore. So we're very excited to have Mr. Potter with us. Scoot over.
Can we get a picture? Can we get a face in there?
There we go.
I've seen Brandon's face before.
Sorry.
But we're very excited. Mr. Potter will be here to obviously help you out, help the city out, help all of our clients out. So we're very pleased with Mr. Potter's decision to come over here and join us.
Well, welcome
It's
aboard.
very nice to meet all of you.
Welcome aboard. We look forward to working with you. All right, anyone else? From me, just want to tell everyone, be safe, please. We're spiking in COVID cases. We are approaching our limits at the hospitals right now, at least at Renown, to the point where we may see the National Guard come in. It's getting pretty scary right now, so let's do our best to keep our masks on and be safe out there. We got to get through this. Man, oh man, it's just killing us, and we just have to buckle down and make it happen. All right, with that being said, without objection, to quote the former mayor, we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
See you later.